Hey there, history lovers. Before we jump into the bustling streets, smoky kitchens, and echoing forums of ancient Rome, take a second to get cozy. Stretch your legs, grab a snack or a drink, put on your headphones. Basically, make yourself at home. We're about to live an entire day in the Roman Empire, from the first rooster crow at dawn to the quiet hush of nightfall. If you like stories that make history feel alive, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, even a Roman centurion would approve. They knew the value of following orders. And here's a fun little experiment. Drop a comment below telling us where you're listening from and what time of day it is. Why? Because it's amazing to see how a single day in ancient Rome connects people across the world. Imagine someone in Sydney hearing Roman bakers kneading bread while it's midnight there, or a listener in London walking along the Forum at dawn. History suddenly feels surprisingly personal and global at the same time. So get comfy, open your mind, and let's step into the daily life of Rome. Ordinary moments, extraordinary stories. It's all about to unfold. Let's begin. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the faint echo of footsteps along stone streets that have not felt a traveller for centuries. The mist rises above the Tiber River, and with it, the first notes of a waking city drift across the air. This is Rome, the beating heart of an empire, where millions once lived and dreamed, worked and rested, feasted and prayed. The air is heavy with a mixture of scents. Fresh bread baking in communal ovens, damp stone cooling from the night, and a trace of smoke from oil lamps that burned until dawn. The city has not yet reached its full roar. Instead, it hums gently, like the slow breathing of a giant preparing to stir. In this story, we will not follow emperors or generals, nor will we stand in the echoing halls of the Senate. Instead, we will walk quietly through an ordinary day, as it might have been lived by the many thousands who called Rome their home. Our pace will be gentle. We will wander slowly, with no urgency, pausing to notice the small details, the way light glances off terracotta rooftops, the rhythm of wheels against the paving stones, the voices of sellers calling to early customers. The city will guide us hour by hour, from the cool breath of dawn, to the crowded noise of midday, to the hush of evening when lamps flicker like stars across the courtyards. We will listen, observe, and drift through time, not as scholars rushing to conclusions, but as quiet visitors, welcomed into another age. Chapter 1. Rome Awakens. The first light of day arrives quietly, spilling across tiled roofs and narrow alleyways. A rooster cries from the courtyard of a modest insula, one of the tall, crowded apartment blocks where most of Rome's citizens live. In the shadows of the streets below, early risers move about with purpose. The sound of wooden wheels creaks as a cart makes its way toward the Forum, stacked high with baskets of vegetables harvested from the countryside the evening before. The driver yawns, adjusting the leather strap across his shoulder, and the donkey snorts, eager for the day's labor. Water carriers, often slaves or hired workers, shuffle past with amphorae balanced carefully on their backs. The water has traveled a long way, down from the aqueducts that bring fresh supplies into the city. Even in these early hours, the public fountains splash steadily, offering refreshment to those who pause with a clay jug in hand. The streets are still cool from the night, the stones damp where shadows linger. Windows open slowly, shutters creaking, as families stir awake. From one household drifts the sound of a child crying for bread. From another, the low hum of a mother's song as she prepares a morning meal. The smells of baking begin to spread, Communal ovens glow warmly as bakers pull out loaves with long wooden paddles. The crust crackles in the air, mingling with the faint aroma of oil and smoke. Some loaves are destined for wealthy homes, others for market stalls, and still more for the countless hands that will carry them back to modest apartments later in the day. As the sun rises higher, the voices grow louder. Merchants test their scales, unrolling cloth and displaying jars of olives. Street sweepers with brooms of bundled twigs clear away the refuse left behind by the night. And over it all, the call of the city watch drifts along the streets. The reminder that order, however fragile, is kept in this vast and restless capital. For now, however, the mood is calm. It is still the hour when Rome feels most like a village. Neighbors greeting each other, small trades beginning, the heartbeat of the city steady and slow. Soon, the tempo will rise. But for this brief moment, we linger in the quiet hum of Rome awakening. Chapter 2. Home and Daily Life. The morning light spills more fully into the city, weaving between columns and archways, softening the stone with a pale golden glow. By now, the hum of daily life has begun in earnest. To understand Rome, one must step inside the spaces where its people live, rest, and begin their day. The homes of Rome, whether cramped and crowded or wide and elegant, shape the rhythms of life as surely as the sun and the seasons. Most Romans live in the insulae, tall apartment buildings that stretch upward like haphazard towers. Constructed of brick, stone, and wooden beams, these structures rise several stories high, sometimes as many as 6 or 7, leaning toward one another across the narrow streets. The apartments within vary greatly. On the upper levels, rooms are small, dark, and poorly ventilated. The walls may be thin, and the air filled with the scent of smoke from cooking fires, or damp from the night's coolness. Water is carried up by hand. There are no private wells, no luxuries of fountains. Life here is crowded, sometimes noisy, but it pulses with energy, the shared heartbeat of hundreds of families. On the lower floors, life feels different. Rooms are larger, sometimes even with private courtyards. These dwellings are more expensive, rented by artisans or merchants who can afford a better space. Here, a family might own a mosaic floor or decorate their walls with painted scenes of gods, animals, or even landscapes. In the quiet of early morning, a mother arranges bowls of olives and bread on a low wooden table while her children chase one another across the tile floor. Beyond the insulae, the wealthy live in the domus, private houses built around courtyards with elegant atriums open to the sky. Imagine stepping through the threshold of such a home. The first space is the atrium, a broad hall where sunlight streams down through the opening in the roof, falling into a shallow pool at the center called the impluvium. The walls are decorated with frescoes, perhaps scenes of myth, or delicate patterns of flowers and vines. A bronze lamp glimmers faintly, though the morning light is already strong. Slaves move quietly, sweeping the marble floor, arranging the couches, preparing for the day ahead. Breakfast, or a entaculum, is a simple affair for most Romans. It is not a grand meal, but rather a light beginning to the day. In the insula, it might be nothing more than coarse bread, dipped in wine, or eaten with a piece of cheese or dried fruit. A child clutches a fig, its sweetness clinging to his fingers, while his father tightens the leather straps of his sandals before leaving for work. In the domus of the wealthy, the meal may include honeyed bread, fresh fruit, and a small cup of watered wine. Even so, it is modest compared to the feasts of the evening. The day's routines are already unfolding. Women weave at their looms, the rhythmic motion of the shuttle echoing softly in the chamber. The scent of freshly washed linen, drying on a line, drifts into the air. Children recite lessons, their small voices stumbling over words of Latin and Greek. A father reviews his tablets, calculating trade or accounts, his stylus scratching quietly across the wax. For many, the household is also a workplace. In one room, a cobbler hammers leather into sandals, the steady tap of his tools keeping time with the flow of conversation. In another, jars of oil are lined neatly along the wall, ready for sale later in the day. Even within the confines of home, Rome hums with industry. Step outside once more, and the air feels richer now, warmed by the sun, alive with voices. From the open windows of the insulae, you can hear fragments of daily life, the laughter of children, the instructions of a mother, the faint strains of a flute played idly by a neighbor. From within the domus, the trickle of water in a courtyard fountain mingles with the hushed footsteps of slaves preparing for their master's business. The home is not merely a shelter. It is the stage upon which each Roman plays out the rhythms of existence. Whether simple or splendid, cramped or spacious, these spaces breathe with the same life. The quiet beginning of another day in the empire's vast and restless capital. Chapter 3: Streets and City Life. By mid-morning, Rome is fully awake. The narrow streets that only an hour ago carried the soft shuffle of carts and the echo of morning greetings now swell with sound and motion. The sun climbs higher, burning away the haze over the Tiber, and its light glances off tiled rooftops and marble columns. The city is alive. Imagine stepping out from the shadowed doorway of an insula into the streets below. The first impression is one of noise, layered and constant, a symphony of voices and footsteps, of wheels against stone and animals braying. Vendors cry their wares in voices polished by practice, rising above the crowd. Bread still warm from the oven, figs ripe and fragrant, amphorae of olive oil carried with careful pride. The calls overlap and intermingle, forming a tapestry of sound that is uniquely Roman. The streets themselves are narrow, often crowded, the paving stones worn smooth from centuries of footsteps. Water runs in shallow gutters, carrying away the debris of daily life. Above, balconies jut out, draped with drying cloth, or hung with cages where birds sing faintly. The air is thick with smells, the sweetness of honey cake sold from a stall, the sharper tang of fish brought in from the coast, the smoke of roasting meat, and, mingling with it all, the less pleasant odour of animals and refuse that cling stubbornly to the stones. Children dart between adults, laughing as they chase one another, their sandals slapping against the pavement. A boy pauses to watch a performer juggling clay cups, his eyes wide with wonder until his mother pulls him gently onward. Donkeys bray as they strain against their loads, baskets of grain, bundles of firewood, amphorae of wine. The animals know these streets as well as any human, their hooves clattering rhythmically in time with the city's pulse. At the heart of the morning's bustle lies the market. Here, colours and textures spill across the stalls. Heaps of pomegranates and apples, bolts of dyed cloth shimmering in the sunlight, polished bronze vessels gleaming like captured fire. A fishmonger calls out, his hands still slick from the sea's offerings, while beside him a spice seller opens a small jar, letting passers-by breathe the sharp aroma of cinnamon and pepper, carried from lands far beyond Rome. To walk here is to travel without leaving, for the empire's reach stretches across the world, and its markets reflect that reach. Not far away, the forum begins to fill. This is not only the commercial heart of the city, but its social and political centre as well. Marble columns rise tall against the sky, and the air is thick with voices debating, gossiping, announcing. On one wall, the daily news, the acta diurna, is posted. Reports of trials, announcements of festivals, decrees from officials. Citizens pause to read, their heads bent together, murmuring as they share the words aloud. Some smile at the news of a coming spectacle in the amphitheatre, while others frown at the latest tax or decree. The city lives as much in its conversations as in its stones. The street is also a stage. Performers find small spaces to captivate their audience. A flute player weaving a tune that floats above the crowd. A storyteller gesturing with dramatic flair as children gather at his feet. A pair of acrobats balancing with practiced ease. Coins clink into outstretched hands, a gesture of appreciation before the watchers move on. Yet for all its energy, the city's rhythm is steady, unhurried in its own way. People linger in conversation, greeting neighbors, haggling gently over prices. There is no rush to finish, for the day is long, and Rome has always thrived on this constant hum of activity. If you pause for a moment, perhaps at the edge of a shaded colonnade, you can take in the scene as though it were a painting. The swirl of robes and tunics in white and earthy tones, the gleam of bronze and marble, the gestures of hands in conversation, the ripple of laughter, the creak of wooden wheels, the constant flow of footsteps across the ancient stones. This is the city not of emperors or senators, but of people, ordinary and unremarkable in the grand sweep of history, yet vital, for without them, Rome would not live. In their buying and selling, in their laughter and complaints, in their voices echoing across the forum, the empire breathes. And so we linger, listening, watching, absorbing the life of the streets as the morning unfolds into day. Chapter 4. Work and Crafts. As the morning brightens into late morning, the city's pulse shifts once again. The chatter of the markets continues, but alongside it grows another sound, the steady rhythm of work. Rome is not only a place of grandeur and marble, but also of endless craft and labor, each task adding to the living fabric of the city. Step into a narrow side street, away from the flow of the forum, and you will hear it, the clang of a blacksmith's hammer striking iron on an anvil. Sparks leap in the dim workshop, where the air is warm with the scent of smoke and hot metal. The smith wipes his brow with the back of his arm as he works a horseshoe into shape, each strike measured and precise. Nearby, apprentices watch, their hands busy but their eyes attentive, learning a trade that will sustain them for life. Farther along, the workshop of a potter hums with quieter sounds. The wheel turns slowly, guided by a practiced hand. Clay rises and shapes itself beneath the touch of fingers, forming a vessel that may soon carry oil, wine, or water. The air smells faintly of earth and dampness, and the floor is dusted with dry clay. Rows of finished amphorae line the walls, their surfaces etched with simple marks or left plain, ready for the merchant who will buy them. Each piece is ordinary, yet each is essential, for Rome drinks deeply of what its provinces bring, and these jars are the vessels of empire. In another part of the city, a baker bends over his ovens once more. Though much bread was prepared in the early hours, demand never ceases. He works with steady hands, shaping dough into loaves, brushing flour from his apron. Children gather near the doorway, clutching small coins, waiting for the warm bread that will be their midday meal. The baker smiles faintly as he hands over the loaves, the crust crackling in the heat, the smell rich and comforting. The tanner's yard offers a different picture. Here, the work is harder, the air sharper, Skins are soaked and stretched, scraped clean and prepared for their next purpose. The smell is strong, pungent, not pleasant to a passing nose, but necessary. Without the tanner, there would be no leather for sandals, belts, or armor. The workers move steadily, their hands skilled and practiced, enduring the odor as part of their craft. Wander farther, and you may find a workshop of mosaic makers. Small tiles, cut from stone or glass, are arranged into patterns on a surface spread before them. The colors gleam, deep blues, bright reds, shining golds. The designs may form borders for a wealthy man's floor, or intricate scenes to decorate a villa's walls. Each tiny piece is fitted with patience, the picture emerging slowly, as if the stone itself remembers what it is meant to become. Not all work is tied to crafts and trade. In the shadow of the city's walls, soldiers go about their duties. Some patrol the streets in pairs, their armor clinking softly as they walk, their eyes watchful. Others drill in the training yards, practicing formations, their sandals pounding the ground in unison. Their presence is steady, a reminder of order, but also of the Empire's power, sustained not only by marble and markets, but by discipline and steel. In the courtyards of Domus, slaves carry out their endless duties. Some grind grain at heavy mills, their shoulders straining with the work. Others polish bronze vessels until they gleam, or sweep mosaic floors until no trace of dust remains. Their lives are bound to service, their labor woven invisibly into the rhythm of every wealthy household. Though often silent in the records of history, they are present in every detail of Roman life. Across the city, the work of Rome continues, each craft and trade adding to the great machine of empire. The sound of hammers, the turning of wheels, the chatter of markets, the rustle of cloth in the hands of a weaver. Together they form the city's heartbeat. Pause for a moment and listen, not to one sound alone, but to all of them together. They do not clash, but blend, a harmony of labor that sustains millions. Rome is marble and triumph, yes, but it is also this, the ordinary work of countless hands, day after day, shaping clay, baking bread, striking iron, weaving thread. Without them, the empire would falter. With them, it endures. And as the sun climbs higher, the workers pause to wipe their brows, to rest for a moment in the shade, to sip water carried from the fountains. Soon it will be midday, and the city will seek its simple meal. Chapter 5. The Midday Meal. As the sun climbs toward its zenith, the pace of the city begins to ease. The workers pause, the markets soften, and a different rhythm takes hold. Midday in Rome is not marked by grand feasts or lavish spreads, but by the simple, steady act of eating. A pause that nourishes body and spirit before the hours that remain. The streets, still alive with voices, now carry new sounds. The laughter of children freed for a short time from lessons, the creak of tavern doors opening wider, the chatter of neighbors sharing bread. It is the hour when appetites stir, and even the busiest of craftsmen set aside their tools. For most Romans, the midday meal, prandium, is plain, modest and quick. A laborer in his tunic sits on a low step, breaking apart a loaf of coarse bread. He dips it into a small dish of olive oil, perhaps flavored with herbs. Alongside it, he eats a handful of olives, their salt sharp against the warm bread. From a clay cup, he drinks water, cool and refreshing, perhaps lightly mixed with wine. There is little ceremony, little indulgence, only the satisfaction of quiet hunger stilled. Children, released from their morning studies, chatter as they munch on figs or apples bought from the market. Their sticky fingers clutching fruit, they share bites with one another, giggling between words. the sweet taste making their eyes brighten. A teacher, standing nearby, eats in silence, his gaze thoughtful as he chews on bread and cheese, preparing his mind for the lessons to come. In the taverns, or popinai, the meal is more varied. Here, the air is thick with the scent of cooking. Patrons sit on wooden stools around rough tables, talking in low voices as bowls of lentils, beans, or vegetable stew are brought to them. Some order small cuts of meat, roasted over charcoal fires, their juices hissing as they drip into the coals. A jug of cheap wine makes its rounds, poured freely, lightening the mood and warming the conversation. For wealthier households, the midday meal is still restrained, but more comfortable. In a shaded atrium, a nobleman reclines on a couch as a slave sets before him a platter. Bread still warm, slices of cheese, a cluster of grapes, perhaps a boiled egg or two. The impluvium glimmers with reflected light, and the sound of trickling water mingles with soft conversation. Children play quietly in the corner, and the household's business continues, but for a brief moment, the family shares a meal together. Not all eat so easily. For some, the midday meal is whatever can be found. A crust shared with a friend, a few dried dates, a scrap of yesterday's fish. Hunger in Rome is familiar, especially to the poor, yet even in scarcity, the rhythm of pausing to eat remains. It is the hour when all, regardless of station, remember their need for food. Beyond the homes and taverns, in shaded colonnades and on stone benches, groups of men linger together, breaking bread as they talk. The topics vary: politics, rumours, the price of grain, the latest spectacle promised at the amphitheatre. The food is secondary, almost incidental. What matters is the gathering, the shared pause in the middle of the day. The air itself seems different now. The brightness of the sun reflects off the stones, and the warmth slows the steps of those walking. Rome does not fall silent. No, the city never truly rests. But it grows gentler for an hour or two, as if the whole metropolis has taken a slow breath together. After the meal, some return quickly to their labour. The baker sets his hands once more to dough, the smith to his iron. Others linger a little longer, stretched out in shade, eyes half closed, lulled by the warmth of midday. In grander homes, a brief rest may follow, a moment of ease before business resumes. Children too grow drowsy, their play softening into quiet murmurs. It is a moment of stillness in the day. Not complete stillness, never in Rome, but a softening, a pause. Bread and fruit, oil and cheese, wine and water. Simple things, shared things. And then, renewed, the city rises again to its labours and its pleasures. The sun hangs high. The afternoon begins. Rome stirs once more, ready for the pursuits of culture, of leisure, of thought. Chapter 6. Culture and Leisure. As the heat of midday softens into the golden light of afternoon, Rome enters a different rhythm. The clamour of the market lingers, the hammers in workshops continue to strike. But for many, these hours are devoted to quieter pursuits. The city does not merely live by bread and work. It thrives on thought, on beauty, on ritual, and on the countless small pleasures that stitch together the fabric of daily life. In one shaded courtyard, a group of children sit cross-legged on low stools. Their teacher, an elderly man in a simple tunic, gestures with his stylus as he recites lines from Virgil. The children repeat after him, their voices uneven, some stumbling, others strong and sure. Tablets of wax rest in their hands, scratched with clumsy letters. A boy frowns, erasing a mistake with the edge of his stylus, then tries again. The lesson is steady, rhythmic, the slow building of knowledge that will shape their lives. Elsewhere, Older students gather in a larger hall, their studies more advanced. Here, rhetoric is practiced. A young man stands before his peers, reciting an argument in measured tones, his gestures deliberate, his eyes bright with the excitement of performance. The teacher interrupts now and then, correcting a phrase, sharpening a thought, but always with the aim of preparing his pupils for the world beyond these walls, for courts, for politics, for the endless debates of Roman life. In quieter corners of the city, libraries open their doors, scrolls line the shelves, each a treasure of ink and papyrus. Scholars unroll them carefully, reading by the light that spills in from high windows. The air is still, filled only with the faint rustle of papyrus and the murmur of quiet voices. Here, philosophy is considered, histories are studied, poetry is savoured. In these halls, Rome looks not to the noise of the streets, but to the voices of the past, preserved and waiting to be heard again. Religion, too, has its place in these hours. The temples, white with marble and cool in their shaded interiors, welcome those who come to make offerings. A woman steps softly to the altar, placing a small cake of honey in thanks to a household god. A man lights a lamp before the statue of Apollo, whispering a prayer for his son's health. The air is fragrant with incense, curling upward in thin streams that catch the sunlight. Outside, priests move with calm purpose, their garments flowing, their chant steady. To pause here is to feel the weight of tradition, the continuity of faith stretching back through centuries. Not all leisure is solemn. In the streets and public squares, entertainers draw small crowds. A flute player leans against a column, his melody weaving gently through the hum of voices. A storyteller, surrounded by children, gestures with wide arms as he recounts a tale of heroes and monsters, his voice rising and falling like a tide. Jugglers toss small clay cups, their rhythm as sure as any craftsman's hammer. The people gather not for grandeur, but for joy, for the simple pleasure of watching, listening, sharing a laugh. In private gardens, shaded by olive trees and cooled by fountains, wealthier Romans stroll at ease. They admire statues carved in marble, or sit on benches of stone as slaves bring trays of fruit and watered wine. Conversation flows gently, philosophy, poetry, or simply the events of the day. The gardens offer quiet, a retreat from the press of the streets, a place where time seems to slow and the air itself grows gentler. Music drifts through the air in unexpected places. A girl plucks at the strings of a lyre, her tune simple but sweet. A man hums as he carves wood, his rhythm matched to the shaping of his hands. Even the hum of bees in a garden, the coo of pigeons in the eaves, the rustle of leaves in the afternoon breeze. All these sounds blend into the gentle music of Rome at leisure. The afternoon stretches on. The sun begins to soften, shadows lengthen. The city does not sleep. Rome rarely sleeps. But in these hours, it seems to breathe more slowly. The frenzy of morning has passed, and now the empire reveals another face. Thoughtful, creative, contemplative, alive with the quiet pleasures of mind and spirit. And as the day continues, another rhythm waits. The baths, the gathering place of Rome, the heart of its social life, are opening their doors. Soon the city will flow there in great numbers, seeking not only cleansing, but community. Chapter 7. The Baths, Heart of Social Life. As the afternoon matures, the streets begin to stir again, but this time with a different purpose. Romans, both wealthy and modest, move toward the public baths, the thermae, the very centers of social life in the empire. Here, cleanliness is intertwined with conversation, relaxation, exercise, and politics. a place where the ordinary day becomes a tapestry of human interaction. The bath complex itself is a marvel of architecture and engineering. Marble steps lead to pools of varying temperatures. The frigidarium, icy and bracing. The tepidarium, comfortably warm. And the coldarium, a steaming, almost suffocating chamber that softens the body and mind. Heated floors hum beneath tiled surfaces. Steam rises in gentle clouds, and water trickles from fountains carved with care. The sound itself, a mixture of voices, splashes, and flowing water, is the background music of Roman leisure. Men stripped to simple loincloths, their sandals clattering on stone floors, and move through the rooms with purpose. Some begin with light exercise in the palestra, stretching or practicing wrestling moves. Muscles flex, glistening with the effort of motion, while trainers shout advice or encouragement. Others move directly to the pools, dipping first into the cold water to awaken the senses, then to warmer baths to relax aching muscles. The water, scented faintly with herbs or oils, carries the faintest reflection of sunlight from high windows, shimmering on the walls in dancing patterns. In quieter corners, men sit and converse. Some discuss the latest decrees of the Senate. Others debate philosophy or local gossip. Patrons recline on marble benches, holding scrolls or listening to orators who have come to entertain, to instruct, or to persuade. Here, the exchange of ideas is as vital as the cleansing of the body. The bath is a place where mind and body meet in shared humanity. Women, in separate sections of the baths, move through their own rituals of washing, bathing, and conversation. Some apply fragrant oils and scented powders, massaging them into hair and skin. Others exchange advice on household matters, family, and the latest fashions. Children play in shallow pools, their laughter ringing above the gentle lap of water. The air is humid and heavy, yet comforting, as if the very moisture of the baths softens not only the skin, but the burdens of the day. Merchants and craftsmen sometimes come to the baths after their work. A baker might leave flour on his hands, yet here, the ritual of cleansing and the pleasure of conversation erase the day's toil, if only for an hour. Even slaves, rare in these public spaces, may accompany their masters, their presence quiet but attentive, part of the complex choreography of social life. In corners of the baths, artists and poets find inspiration. One young man sketches figures of bathers, capturing the grace of motion and the gleam of skin in reflected light. Another recites a short poem, his voice blending with the murmur of water, the splash of hands, the echo of laughter. The baths, in their bustle, are a microcosm of the city, energetic, messy, beautiful, and endlessly human. The bathhouses also contain shops and stalls. A man might buy oils scented with myrrh or rose, a comb of ivory, or a small snack of figs and nuts. Vendors call out their wares, their voices rising above the general hum, adding another layer to the complex rhythm of the baths. Every step, every gesture, contributes to the living mosaic of the empire's daily life. As the afternoon progresses, the crowds begin to thin. People dress again in their tunics and sandals, brushing water from hair and skin, their bodies and spirits refreshed. Conversations linger a little longer, farewells are exchanged, and slowly the baths empty, leaving only the faint scent of oil and warm stone in their wake. Yet even after the doors close, the memory of the baths remains in the city, in the laughter of children who played in pools, in the discussions that sparked ideas, in the simple pleasure of being cleansed and cared for. Rome moves onward, but the bath has left its mark, a pause in the day where community and individuality, labor and leisure, body and mind all intersect. Chapter 8. Evening Streets and Nightfall. As the sun sinks lower, casting long shadows across the stone streets, Rome takes on a new character. The day's heat softens. The bright glare of noon fades into warm amber light, and a sense of transition settles over the city. Evening is a time of return, reflection, and preparation. A gentle winding down after the city's relentless activity. Merchants pack away goods from the market stalls. Wooden carts creak as they are drawn to storage yards. Cloths are folded and baskets emptied. The smell of fresh bread still lingers in some corners, mingling with the faint smoke of cooking fires. Shopkeepers tally coins, exchange a few words with neighbors, and close shutters against the approaching night. On the streets, the pace slows. Children return home dragging small toys or tired from play. Their laughter softens, replaced by hurried footsteps or whispered conversations. Families gather in atriums, preparing simple evening meals. The aroma of porridge, roasted vegetables, or boiled legumes fills the air, signaling that the final nourishment of the day is near. For laborers and craftsmen, evening is both an ending and a pause. Tools are cleaned, workshops shuttered, and hands washed of dust and sweat. The rhythm of hammering and pounding fades, replaced by quieter tasks or the occasional social visit to a neighbor. In some cases, the most energetic gather once more for a brief game or discussion, unwilling to let the day close entirely without a small mark of community. Streetlights begin to glow faintly, small oil lamps illuminating corners of the city. Their light flickers on walls, revealing textures otherwise hidden by the brightness of day. In narrow alleys, the lamps cast long shadows, creating pockets of mystery and intrigue, whispering that even in ordinary Rome, there is always movement, always life behind the visible. Taverns see a resurgence in activity. Patrons arrive to share a modest supper or a drink, speaking in quieter tones than the bustling midday crowd. Some discuss the day's events, while others speak of plans for tomorrow, of rumors from distant provinces, of gladiatorial games soon to be held in the amphitheater. Food is simple: bread, cheese, olives, perhaps a bit of fish or meat, yet it tastes richer after the day's labors. Wine flows freely, warming the chest and loosening the tongue, but conversation remains lively, tethered to the social bonds that define the city. Temples, too, take on a different air at sunset. Priests perform brief evening rites, offerings of incense, flowers, or grains. The light slants through open doors, illuminating sacred statues, casting long, reverent shadows. Citizens pass quietly through porticos, murmuring prayers or paying homage before departing for their homes. There is a solemnity in this twilight worship, a quiet acknowledgement of forces beyond the mortal city. Evening also brings music and entertainment. Street performers, fewer than in the bustling daytime, practice tricks or melodies for those who linger. A flute player's notes float across a quiet square. A storyteller spins a brief tale, enough to capture attention before nightfall. The city listens, not in urgency, but in reflection, savoring each sound as part of the closing chapter of the day. As darkness deepens, windows are lit with small oil lamps, casting a warm glow into atriums and courtyards. Families share quiet meals, slaves serve faithfully, and laughter drifts gently from open doors. Outside, the city is still alive, but the tempo has slowed. Footsteps echo more softly, carts move more cautiously, and the once bright streets are now veiled in shadow. In some quarters, late-night travelers pass. a soldier returning from duty, a merchant closing a deal, a philosopher walking contemplatively. Their presence reminds the city that life continues, even as many retreat into the comfort of home. Rome never sleeps entirely, but it shifts, like a great tide ebbing from the bustling shores of day into the calmer waters of night. The last markets close, the baths empty completely, and even the distant roar of the amphitheatre fades. Only the occasional call of a watchman or the clatter of a distant cart punctuates the quiet. The city breathes more slowly now, settling into shadows, resting, preparing for another sunrise. And so ends the day. A mosaic of work and leisure, labour and thought, simplicity and splendour. Rome, in all its ordinary magnificence, prepares for the eternal rhythm of life to continue. Tomorrow, to awaken once more. Chapter 9, Night and Rest. As the last streaks of amber and rose fade from the horizon, Rome descends into night. The city that roared with commerce, conversation, and labour hours ago, now breathes softly, cocooned in the darkness, punctuated only by the gentle glow of oil lamps flickering behind shuttered windows. Inside homes, families gather in atriums and dining rooms for the final moments of the day. A simple supper might be shared, often consisting of bread, cheese, perhaps a small portion of meat or fish, and fresh fruit. Conversation drifts to matters both personal and civic. The fortunes of a neighbour, the latest news from distant provinces, or plans for the coming day. Children, now tired from study, play, and errands, are coaxed to bed with soft words and gentle gestures. Parents recount brief stories or myths, weaving in moral lessons or amusement, blending education with affection. Households of wealthier Romans maintain elaborate evening rituals. Slaves light multiple lamps to chase away shadows, close shutters, and prepare bedrooms with fine linens. Perfumed oils are applied, combs run through hair, and soft music sometimes fills the background. The sense of ceremony is subtle but pervasive. The day's end is not merely functional. It is a statement of care, comfort, and preparation for rest. In more modest homes, the ritual is simpler but equally important. Earthen lamps are lit, small fires kept alive in hearths for warmth, and families huddle together in shared spaces. Stories and songs bridge the day's exhaustion, and meals are eaten slowly, allowing conversation and companionship to linger. The night is a sacred pause, a rhythm allowing both body and spirit to restore balance. Outside, the city is quieter but far from silent. Watchmen patrol narrow streets, carrying lanterns and calling out their rounds. The faint sound of distant chatter drifts from taverns still open for a last drink. Horses and carts occasionally pass along main roads, their drivers wary of uneven stones in the dim light. Even the amphitheatre, empty after its daily spectacles, seems to hum faintly, echoing the memory of cheers and performances. The temples, too, maintain their presence. Priests and attendants perform last rites, offering prayers and incense as if to reassure the gods that Rome is still mindful, even in rest. Citizens may stop briefly on their way home, leaving small offerings or whispering personal petitions. In the night, the divine feels nearer, the rituals more intimate, the connection between mortal and sacred intensified by stillness. In the private quarters of the city, sleep begins to claim its due. Children lie on simple mattresses or beds, blankets pulled close. Adults rest their minds from commerce, labor, and decision-making. Slaves, having completed their duties, find places to lie down in corners or communal sleeping areas. The rhythm of breathing, soft and steady, spreads throughout the homes, a quiet chorus of human life surrendering to night. Yet night in Rome is not merely for sleep. Some citizens linger in private studies or courtyards, reading scrolls by lamplight, writing letters, or discussing philosophy. Scholars may continue debates, scribes transcribe texts, and a few artists practice quietly, their brushes or chisels moving under candlelight. Night becomes a private space for reflection, thought, and creation, a counterpart to the day's public vigor. In the streets, the city itself seems to sigh. Shadows stretch long, walls cool, and the scent of cooking fires fades into the gentle fragrance of herbs, flowers, and damp stone. The sounds of Rome at night, distant footsteps, an occasional dog's bark, the wind through narrow alleys, are subtler than the clamour of day, yet they are as alive, as constant, and as intimate as the pulse of a single heartbeat. And so, Rome rests. From the smallest atrium to the grandest domus, from quiet neighbourhoods to the faintly luminous forum, the empire pauses. Night is a canvas upon which the citizens' lives are briefly hidden, a period of restoration before the inevitable dawn. The city may seem still, but within its darkness lies preparation, a readiness to rise, to work, to socialize, to create, to live, all over again. Night in Rome is ordinary, yet extraordinary, a testament to the endurance, rhythm, and resilience of life in the empire, where each day's ordinary acts combine into the mosaic of history. Chapter 10. Reflections and Continuity. An ordinary day in Rome is, in many ways, a mirror of centuries of accumulated habits, laws, and customs. While individual lives are fleeting, the rhythms of the city endure. The streets, baths, markets, and atriums are more than functional spaces. They are stages upon which the continuity of the empire plays out. As citizens awaken the next morning, the day will begin almost identically to the one just concluded. Children will rise to lessons and chores. Merchants will open stalls. Craftsmen will prepare tools. And the cycle of labour, leisure, and ritual will resume. Yet within each repetition, subtle differences emerge. A new visitor to the forum, a fresh shipment of goods, a slight change in political news, or the appearance of a travelling entertainer. These nuances remind Romans that history is lived moment by moment, yet its patterns endure. The ordinary acts of Romans, eating, bathing, trading, worshipping, socializing, create the invisible infrastructure of empire. Roads are maintained because they are walked and wheeled upon daily. Aqueducts function because water is demanded regularly. Temples remain central because prayers are offered consistently. The empire's strength lies not solely in conquest or law, but in the ordinary rhythms of daily life, repeated faithfully across generations. Reflection on these daily routines also reveals the stratification of society. Wealthier citizens enjoy luxury and ceremony, while labourers and slaves navigate toil and endurance. Yet within this stratification exists a shared human experience, the need for nourishment, rest, social connection, and meaning. Even the simplest acts, a loaf of bread broken, a bath enjoyed, a story told, are threads in the vast tapestry of Roman civilization. The continuity of the city is also mirrored in its architecture. Walls, columns, fountains, and statues stand as witnesses to countless ordinary days. Each stone is both functional and symbolic, carrying the memory of artisans, politicians, and citizens long gone. When a child runs along the forum, when a scholar reads by lamplight, when a baker pulls fresh bread from the oven, they enact the same rituals that have sustained Rome for generations. The empire's endurance is further reflected in its institutions. Markets, guilds, baths, schools, and temples are not merely public services. They are mechanisms of cultural memory. They teach order, discipline, and shared values. They ensure that the ordinary day is also a lesson in history, politics, and ethics, subtly shaping citizens' behavior and expectations. Even the passage of time itself is marked in daily life. Festivals, market days, religious observances, and judicial sessions punctuate the weeks and months, offering rhythm to ordinary existence. A Roman citizen knows that today's actions are part of a broader cycle, one that stretches back into the past and forward into the future. Life may feel mundane, but it is woven into the empire's temporal fabric. As night falls again, the city rests, only to awaken once more. The ordinary day is, in essence, the heartbeat of Rome. It is in the repetition, the attention to ritual, the shared human experience, and the continuity across generations that the empire finds both stability and identity. One day may seem trivial, yet when multiplied across centuries, it constructs the enduring story of Rome. Thus, an ordinary day, from dawn to night, from the bustling forum to quiet atrium, is never truly ordinary. It is a vessel carrying the weight of civilization, the pulse of society, and the continuity of history itself. And in living it, Romans participate in a legacy far greater than themselves, a legacy that echoes even today in the streets, ruins, and stories of an empire that once was. And that's a wrap on a day in ancient Rome. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment with where and when you're tuning in. Now, relax. Let the city of Rome fade into dreams, and good night.